I'm Kerry-Anne Mendoza, editor-in-large at the Canary, and today is a special birthday because the Canary is 5 years old. And I couldn't have dreamed 60 months ago when we conceived the Canary that we would have so much to look back on. But we do. And it's been an absolute rollercoaster ride. So buckle up while I take you on a journey that starts in a pub in Bristol. Take yourself back to 2015. Ed Miliband's Labour have just lost the general election to David Cameron's Conservative Party. This after 5 years of devastating austerity cuts had gutted the welfare state and the NHS. Like many other people, I was in the pub drowning my sorrows with some friends, and then it hit us. Why are we just sitting around complaining about this? We should do something about it. What we felt was that actually you couldn't change people's behaviour until you change the narrative. Stories are everything. Our stories about ourselves, about what we're capable of, about what humanity is capable of, define us. And the media's role in creating that story has never been bigger. And it had got to the point where an establishment media was just determined to keep us small, separate, disempowered and disengaged. And we wanted to be a part of changing that narrative. And we realised to do that, we would need to set up a media outlet like no other on earth. But there was one problem. We had no money, we had no connections, but we did manage to scrape together £500 to get us a website and an accountant. And that was how the Canary was conceived. We were born on the 6th of October 2015. Our initial idea was simple. We wanted to create a new kind of journalism and a new kind of journalist. Unashamedly working class, unashamedly socialist, unashamedly pro-equality and anti-racist. We wanted to go directly to battle with the right-wing press, to challenge the cruel and callous world that they were setting out to create. And we wanted our journalism to be accessible to everyone, regardless of their education level or their political understanding. We barely had a clue how to launch an all-singing, all-dancing media outlet. I'd been writing and broadcasting for a couple of years. Drew Rose had previously co-launched the Bristol Cable, but starting up and running what we hoped would be a hugely successful, widely read media outlet, if I'm being honest, we were kind of pissing in the wind. First, we drafted in a team of experienced writers and editors. We were really diverse in terms of our backgrounds, our education, and even our politics, but what we shared were core values, and that was what the Canary is about. Kindness, acceptance, but also a willingness to fight for those values. Then we hit the ground running with a wing, a prayer, and a hell of a lot of goodwill from the people who joined us. But none of us could have anticipated how the next 5 years would go. We'd only been running around 8 to 12 weeks when the Telegraph published like a whole page spread on us, calling us the maddest left-wing website in the world. We couldn't have asked for better advertising. We were pointing at the establishment press and we were saying, we are not them. And they were pointing at us and saying, they are not us. And to be honest, if we were anything in the world at 8 to 12 weeks, I'll take it. But things really blew up with a story about Portland Communications. Remember that? Yes. That story from 2016, which ended up being referenced by Len McCluskey on the Andrew Marr Show.
I'll be honest, I'm amazed that some of the MPs have fallen into a trap. I think they've been seduced by sinister forces in play here.
What sinister forces?
Well, if the BBC want to do an investigatory programme of a company called Portland, then feel free to do so. This is a PR company with strong links to Tony Blair, right-wing Labour MPs.
Well, we can't be associated with words like sinister.
Who've been critically involved in this orchestrated coup.
Suddenly, everyone knew what the Canary was. Looking back, we could have handled that story and so many others differently, but we were still in our infancy and literally every day was a school day. What I'm proudest of about that period of time is that we learned every lesson we could from it, and it only made our journalism better. And we had to learn quickly, because over the next few years, our presence and importance would just explode. We conducted a hugely successful investigation into Tory election fraud, working with Channel 4 News. Pretty much only Channel 4 News and one journalist at the Mirror have bothered to investigate the Tory election scandal. Despite the fantastic work of Channel 4, they were unable to get into the call centres behind the allegations, and they couldn't reach whistleblowers. But the Canary did. Rather than keep those whistleblowers to ourselves, we did the responsible thing. We took them to Channel 4 News. We gave our story to another organisation because we knew that at that time we were unable to protect those whistleblowers. And I'm still really proud of that decision. The story was a game changer in terms of how UK elections are viewed, and it set us on the trajectory to a place that I just never dreamed of. The sudden general election of 2017 changed everything for us. It was almost like the Canary and Corbyn's paths were intertwined. We both began as underdogs, being laughed at and scorned by the establishment politicians and press. But suddenly the realisation dawned that Corbyn, socialism and the Canary really resonated with people. That people believed in what we stood for. And maybe, just maybe, the tide could be turning against the toxic capitalist mantra that had been controlling our society for decades. Suddenly, the Canary was everywhere. We moved into the top 300 most viewed websites in the UK. We had more readers than Reuters, the Daily Star, the Times, the Economist, the New Statesman. By the time of the election, 1 in 8 people in the United Kingdom had read a story from the Canary. It was awe-inspiring and humbling. But much like for Mr. Corbyn, the attacks from the corporate media came thick and fast. Corbyn's creatures at the Canary, the Sun called us. The Daily Mail dedicated a whole article to my performance on Question Time. So did the Telegraph, calling us hard left. The Sun came back again, accusing us of being a far left conspiracy site, which to be honest is a bit rich coming from an outlet that published the anti-left conspiracies of literal Nazis. We even had MPs talking about us in Parliament. But thanks to you, our readers, none of that fazed us. In fact, it showed that we were clearly doing something right. So right, in fact, that Corbyn managed to deny Theresa May a majority. For us, this was vindication of the fact that we were not only on the right path, but also that there were millions of other people walking that path with us to a more progressive, more compassionate country. So our mission continued, but not without adversity. Until 2018, much of our traffic had been driven by Facebook and social media. But given the surge in popularity of independent media, that was never going to be allowed to continue. So Facebook made changes to its algorithms. And it could have destroyed us. It did signal the end of some independent outlets. Then to top that off, there was something called Stop Funding Fake News, an AstroTurf campaign designed primarily to destroy anti-Zionist voices in the United Kingdom. They went after our advertisers to try to cut off our funding. This meant we had to adapt or die. So we went from an advertising reliant model to a subscription model. We went from being funded by corporations through adverts to being funded by you through your subscriptions. We joined Impress, the independent regulatory body approved by the Leveson inquiry, truly independent, unlike the establishment media who regulate themselves. And we also managed to pick up a Green Trust rating from NewsGuard. This is all despite us having no outside influencers, no corporate donors, no outside shareholders, and no cash for column inches deals. But more than this, we pledged to make the Canary an honest, open, and community-driven organisation. And we are committed to changing. Right now, we're on the 4th iteration of the Canary. We are never afraid to learn, to grow, and to change. In fact, that's a core part of our mission. And now we arrive at Canary 4.0, which in my humble opinion is the best one yet. We've got a team of fresh, committed and exciting writers and editors working with us. Every single one of them brings something unique to the table. But the overall mission is clear. We want to help build a world that works for everyone, a free and fair society where we nurture people and planet. And we want to do it with you, our readers, from the bottom up. I'm often asked what I'm most proud of about the Canary, and to be honest, it's a pretty tough ask. It could be some of the hugely important and groundbreaking stories that we've published. Our exclusive investigation that revealed the existence of a UK government unit dedicated to the reconstruction of Venezuela. This actually empowered the Venezuelan government to take the UK government to task for its role in an attempted coup. It could be some of the incredible people we've interviewed, whether it's Corbyn himself or countless whistleblowers and members of our communities who came to us with a story that was personal and important and found a place that they would be heard. Maybe it's our continuous reporting on the human rights abuses of sick and disabled people, or it could be our staunch defence of fellow animals and the natural world. It could be articles that have prompted questions in Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, Greggs are currently giving 25,000 workers a £300 bonus. But some of those workers on universal credit will only be allowed to keep £75 out of that £300. And if the Prime Minister can answer that question and show me that's just and fair, I'll buy him a vegan roll from Greggs myself.
Or maybe it's our consistent challenge to the erosion of civil liberties and the establishment of authoritarianism that affect us all. I'm proud of all of that and so much more. But what I'm most proud of is us and you, our readers. I'm proud of everyone at the Canary, all of whom battle day in, day out with their own personal issues, but who are still 100% dedicated and committed to building a better world, not just for themselves, but for us all. The Canary would be nothing without you and your steadfast belief in who we are, why we're here, and what we do. Nor would we exist without your commitment to a kinder and a fairer world, because it's that desire for true equality that gets us out of bed every day, that gets us into the newsroom, and gets us into the homes of hundreds of thousands of people. Never let anyone tell you the fight isn't worth it. Don't let anyone persuade you to quit. And never let anyone tell you to give up on what you believe in. While the path we're all on may be long and arduous and littered with tragedy and trauma, know this: change can happen. It will happen. And together we can make it happen. But moreover, always know that the Canary will be there, right by your side, fighting with you and on your behalf. Your world is our world. Your lives are our lives. Your story is our story. And together we will prevail.